Today is Friday, October 13th, 2023. Tomorrow marks 28 days or 4 weeks since the UAW went on strike against the Detroit Three. Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. And in this video, let's discuss what's happened in the past month. Let's discuss where we are today. And at the end, I'll give you some insights I've gotten from you, the commenters, and people I've talked to in the area. And yeah, kind of overall thoughts. So let's start. Let's kind of back up. So if you recall, I did a video when this first came out and I did some stories on pickuptrucktalk.com about the UAW strike. They impacted 3 plants. They impacted a GM plant, a Ford plant, and a Jeep plant. And they went on strike demanding better wages and to a tiered system of getting higher pay, and you've seen some stories from UAW probably past month where people take some 16, 17 years to get to highest pay level working in the plant. They want cost living adjustments. They want better working conditions. They want an improvement in basically their everyday lives at the plants. And they see the corporate profits in the past couple decades, or actually since probably the last decade, and they see how much the CEOs are making, and they say, hey, we want a share of that. And that's kind of what the strike has been about. Shawn Fain has said several times, different interviews I've seen him give, that this is about social equality, social justice, and this is a fight for the middle class. That's what they're fighting for. And so we've seen escalation. They've kind of, in the past 28 days, we've seen more targeted strikes. So historically, the UAW on September 14th goes to the bargaining table with, they pick one automaker, they bargain for the one automaker, and when they make the agreement, the other two automakers sign the agreement. In this case, he's doing a fight with each of the automakers individually, and we're doing targeted strikes. And so we've saw targeted strikes with 3 plants. We also saw targeted strikes of a variety of parts supply centers throughout the country. And I'm going to show you this on the screen because I think a lot of people assume that it's just a Detroit thing. Well, I happen to be in Michigan right now, doing this video in my dad's basement of all places. So insert your comments there. But this is a map on autonews.com that lays out all the plants and all the facilities that are impacted by the strike. A lot of these, as you can click on these are parts distribution centers. We have them throughout the country. So you're looking at different parts throughout the country. And then we have, this is Wentzville Assembly. That's where the first strike happened. You can see the number of employees that are impacted. But we're seeing strikes throughout the country, and you're seeing all sorts of reverberations. And then we saw the big one. A couple days ago, we saw that Ford announced it was going to, or not Ford announced, excuse me, that UAW announced it was going to close the Ford Kentucky plant. That is a huge piece of news. And I wrote it up yesterday on pickuptrucktalk.com. So if you don't know, that is like basically the crown jewel of Ford's business. That plant by itself, okay, and I have the numbers right here. So that's $25 billion that Ford makes in profit at that one plant. That's $48,000 per minute they make at that plant. If you broke that plant out as its own company, it'd be rank in the Fortune 500 companies. It's a big deal. Now, Shawn Fain says that $48,000 per minute is thousands more than most of the workers there make in a year. And he's also talking about that strike was really pivotal because they met with Ford on Wednesday. And so he discusses more about the Ford deal. They met with them 2 weeks ago, and they said Ford negotiators at that time said there's more room to give. Let's come back to the table. And so on Wednesday, Ford called the UAW and said they wanted a Zoom call. They didn't want to meet in person, and they wanted they offered the same economic offer. And so the UAW said no. So we're going to meet in person so you can tell us to our face they have nothing more to offer. And apparently it was a very short meeting in Ford headquarters. UAW is one side, Ford management on the other side. Very short meeting. They asked Ford management to leave. They decided, Shawn Fain and one of the heads of one of his council members called the Ford Kentucky truck plant, called the UAW leader down there and said, it's time to walk off the job. 8,700 workers walked off the job, and that plant is effectively closed. It'll be added to the Auto News thing probably pretty soon. And Shawn's point of view on this is that he says companies have waited till Friday because UAW has been announcing targeted strikes on Fridays, and he's tired of them waiting till Friday to negotiate. What he's calling for this new phase is that we're going to launch strikes anytime, any place, wherever. He's done waiting for negotiations. They want a deal now, as he puts it. He wants a fair deal, and he wants to get people back to work. Ford countered that by saying that they did give a very generous offer. It's one of the biggest record. It's an offer that's the biggest record in history for UAW employees of Ford Motor Company, and that they have offered as much as they can give. They're at their breaking point. They can't give any more. And CEO Jim Farley has said that if they give any more, that's going to bankrupt the company. That's where they're at with that number. Shawn Fain comes back and says, "Hey, Jim Farley made $21 million. What are you talking about bankrupting the company? I think you're fine." It's interesting. That's a back and forth. There's a lot of other strikes going on too. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan has been on strike. Kaiser Permanente has been on strike. The ZF transmission plant has been on strike. There is some other small strikes talking about. There's a Detroit Casino Council that may go on strike this weekend. That's 4,000 workers, 1,000 UAW. And General Dynamics is talking about going on strike. They had 97% of the workers approve a strike, and their contract's up in 2 weeks. Also, there was a strike at Mack Trucks. I covered this a couple days ago on, again, pickuptrucktalk.com. And as you can see, 4,000 union workers at Mack Trucks reject proposed contract, announced strike. It's actually where Shawn Fain is going this weekend to stand solidarity with them. There's also a lot of international UAW groups that have now flown in to the United States to show support for the UAW here in the United States. And it's keeps growing, as I would say, as you can see from the numbers and the frail, there's lots of stuff going on. And so more targeted strikes. The proposed contract at Mack Trucks includes several key provisions, such as 19% pay increase, a $3,500 ratification bonus, improved retirement benefits, additional vacation time for certain employees, and a reduction in the time required to reach those top pay levels. And they overwhelmingly rejected that to go on strike instead. And one more thing added to the story is we talked about the targeted strikes. Out of 146,000 UAW employees at General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler or Stellantis, approximately 25,000 are on strike. These strikes have cited as a factor contributing to at least 7,300 layoffs. So what automakers are doing is, as plants go on strike and as they have less parts, they're laying off employees and closing down centers because they don't have the parts and things to keep the operation going. So not only do we have the strikes going on, but we have layoffs happening from the companies. And so what Shawn wants, he wants real gains. He wants real things to happen. He wants real contracts, and he wants something, and in his viewpoint, and he said it, that negotiations about give and take, and he wants to start giving and taking. He's got some demands that have not always been very popular with the general public, like the 4-day work week, but that's some give and take. So he's willing to do some give and take on that, and he hasn't seen anything. So that is your update on what they're talking about on that. And so, yeah, one more thing on that. He points out that Ford's made $77 billion last decade. In the meantime, of the $77 billion last decade, they've closed 65 plants in 20 years, and they cost thousands of jobs. And so he basically called it Jim Farley several times, said, you made 21 million last year. Look in your bank account, look in the mirror, and tell us that that's fair. Quite the comment. And there's also a recent AP poll that says 9% of the population agrees to corporate America. The rest agree with UAW strike. And for the UAW standpoint, as far as the other Detroit 3, GM is making progress. Looks like they are going to ratify a deal with Unifor, and that the Unifor is the UAW in Canada. Looks like that's all a good going forward. Stellantis is making some progress. They've had some progress talks. He says he feels confident in those talks moving forward. And he said Ford just wasn't making any progress, and they felt insulted, and they closed the plant down. Now, I've been in Michigan here for, a week. I've talked to several different people, ways of life, that kind of thing. And I think they all have come back to the same viewpoint, is that they agree the UAW gave up a lot in 1996 and 2007 recession and the bailouts, and they just want their fair share. I don't know that everybody's on the for every aspect of the UAW is asking for. I don't. There's a lot of broad agreement there from the public, but I think a lot of people are a broad agreement that the UAW needs to be rewarded. I mean, and $77 billion in the last decade, and wages haven't gone up. All right, I I can see that point of view. My point of view is, please end soon. Because this, again, you saw that map in the Auto News. It is going to keep expanding. It's going to keep getting worse. And right now, you look at the Ford Super Duty. That's a new Super Duty that came out, and that's going to be delayed, which means commercial businesses will be delayed getting those, which means it's going to hurt mom and pop companies, because now they, like myself, I need to buy a new truck every year for taxes. And if I can't afford to buy that truck, it costs me tens of thousands of dollars to be able to afford that truck. So I'm going to be hurt. Other channels on YouTube are going to be hurt. Advertising dollars may drop because if you're not having vehicles to sell, then you may not advertise as much. GM has stated they had like 400,000 vehicles in inventory, but they have plants that are shut down, not feeding that inventory. And typically, you got to keep that supply chain going. And so I worry about not just the automakers, I worry about suppliers, the tier 1 suppliers and the tier 2 and tier 3, the mom and pops that, so if you're, building a pin, this pin may be done by tier 1, but tier 2 builds the little nubby here and tier 3 builds this thing here. And so it's a ripple effect of going the economy. And I worry about our overall economy. I mean, there's just a lot of things in play. And so my hope is that there's negotiations happening more frantically and we get to agreement immediately, because this is going to get even uglier. So what do you guys think? Put your comments down below. I'm curious. Like I said, I've been reading your comments. I feel like I'm one of the only YouTube channels really covering this, and I don't understand why, because this to me is the big topic of the day. I've actually pushed off some reviews lately and made this a priority. Sorry for my red face. It's really weird lighting in here. But yeah, again, put your comments down below. Check out pickuptrucktalk.com. Again, I'm covering this quite a bit. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.